Today we're going to be checking out this power bank, which is made by some company that I'm not going to attempt to pronounce, but I'll leave a link in the description below so you can find it easily without me having to pronounce it. But basically I found this on Amazon and I was impressed with the specs, at least for the size. So we're going to get deep into all those specs and find out what this thing can do and some of the things that I saw as features that I really wanted to check out. So what are we waiting for? Let's go ahead and check this thing out and see what kind of specs I was excited about, and then we're going to test it out. Hey everybody, it's Chris from FamilyGeekery, and today we're going to be checking out this power bank. This is a 10,000 milliamp battery bank, which isn't the hugest capacity, especially when I've got things like this Jackery and this Anchor next to it that I've been testing out. You can check out some review and comparison videos on those also on the channel. But I saw this on Amazon and I was pretty intrigued with some of the features on it, so that's what we're going to be checking out. Now this is something I bought myself. This is not a sponsored review, so all the opinions are mine, of course. And this came out of my pocket. So if you do check those things out on Amazon or watch some of my other videos, I appreciate that. It helps me make more videos. So let's see, besides the 10,000 milliamp hours, which like I said is not super impressive, but let's see some of the other specs that caught my eye. And I'm just going to hit some of these here. The first thing that popped out at me is the output on the USB-C goes all the way up to 120 watts. So it says it can go up to 20 volts at 6 amps. That's pretty impressive for something this small, and it can charge at almost the same speed. It's saying 20 volts at 4.5 amps for the input on that USB-C. In addition to that, it's got a USB-A, which will go all the way up to 33 watts output, and we've got a total capacity of about 36 watt hours. So to compare that up against some of these other guys that I've got here, this Jackery, this is about 99 watt hours, which is the max that you can bring onto a plane. So this is about 3 times as big as this one as far as capacity goes, but this one has 100 watt output. And then this big honkin' Anchor over here, this has almost 200 watt hours of capacity, but only 60 watts out on this port here. So that's why I was pretty intrigued with seeing something that was this small that can put out 120 watts at that USB-C output. And it also has a little display on there, which is going to give us some of the same information as some of these more expensive units. Now this was fairly cheap. I think it was under $30 when I got it on Amazon. So what I think I'm going to be using this for is something like a battery bank, a super portable battery bank for something like a Steam Deck where the extra power out will help. Or even a MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, that type of thing. You're going to get the full output. You're not going to get 10 charges off of it, but it will give you just a little bit more capacity, and it fits in your pocket, it fits in your backpack, so super portable. So let's go ahead and open this thing up and see what it looks like and test it out. So in the package we get the battery, of course, itself. We got an instruction book here, and then we've got a small charging cable, which is a little higher quality than what I was expecting. I was expecting something really cheap. Now it is fairly short, but at least it feels like a pretty decent quality. It says 6 amps on here, so that may be matching or saying that it matches at 20 volts, 6 amps output, giving you 120 watts out of this thing. So let's take a look at the battery itself. And we've got, like I said, there's going to be a screen here. It's pretty basic as far as design. It's not bad looking. It does say right here 35/36 watt hours, so airline safe. That's nice, just in case they ask you at the airport what is the capacity on this thing. Then you can show them right away, hey, this thing is good to go. Here's our 2 outputs, the output 1, which is your charging and your output for USB-C, and then the output 2 is going to be USB-A. Would have been nice to have a couple more ports on here, but since the capacity on this thing is relatively low in the grand scheme of things, you probably are only going to be plugging it into one thing anyways, or maybe you could plug it into an iPad and an iPhone at the same time, charge it on the plane. But for the most part, I'm going to be using this for something like a Steam Deck or something, where I can just get one device, as much power as I can for it. So let's turn this thing on and see what the screen looks like. Alright, so we got a button on the front here, which when you push it, brings that screen on. And it's not a bad looking screen, even without, putting it right up to a camera here. I can see this with my naked eye pretty easily. So it has the capacity here, 58%. It's going to show, it looks like your outputs on both your USB-C and USB-A. So that's pretty cool. And then we're going to be able to see a little bit more information here as far as volts and amps. Now that's something that a lot of these power banks don't show. They may show how many watts you're outputting, or they may show what their percentage is, but they don't usually show your volts and amps. And that's important for some devices, just in case you're using a device and it doesn't seem like it's charging fast enough. You can see how many volts it is, and it may be something as simple as having a cheap, maybe you bought a cheap cable at 5 below or something, and it's not going up into 9 volt or 12 volt mode, it's sticking at 5 volt mode, and this will be able to diagnose that for you to show you why it's not charging fast enough. So that's pretty cool. And then you push the button again, it asks you if you want to turn the screen off. Long press for 2 seconds to switch. So if I press that for 2 seconds, I can keep the screen on. So that's pretty cool. So pretty nice screen, has a good amount of information. The next thing I want to do is plug this thing into a charger and get this thing charging up and seeing how many watts I can get into this. It said a maximum of 90 watts in, depending on the type of charger you have. So what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to grab this Jackery here, since I can see how much power it's putting out, and it's supposed to be able to put out 100 watts. We'll see if that matches what we're seeing on the input of this one. So I'm going to get that wired up and we'll check that out. Alright, so I've got a USB-C cable going from my Jackery here into this power bank. And when you do this, you have to be careful, because if it's just USB-C to USB-C, they don't know who's going to be charging and who's going to be charged. So sometimes you have to unplug and plug it back in to get it going the direction that you want. But right away, I can see this thing says that it's putting out 91 watts output. So that's pretty impressive. Let's see what this thing thinks it's receiving. And it says it's getting about 88 watts input. Now there's always going to be a little bit of discrepancy, and it could be just the efficiency of the cable. It could be the calibration between the two batteries. But I'm going to say that's pretty darn impressive that this tiny little thing here can charge up to, it said rated up to 90 watts, and we're getting exactly that coming out of the Jackery going into here. So with that, it also shows up to 100%, so 60.78%, in climbing, and it says in 21 minutes it should be fully charged. So that's probably one of the most impressive displays I've seen on a little battery bank, where it shows the percentage up into the 100th%. So far I'm pretty impressed with this little thing. I guess the next thing we should do is see if we can trick it into charging the Jackery, since I know the Jackery will take up to 100 watts input. See if we can get this guy to output 100 watts into the Jackery. Alright, so after several attempts, I could not get the Jackery and this battery bank to talk to each other to where it would let this battery bank charge the Jackery. Every time I plugged it in, it would just keep on going from the Jackery to the battery bank. And there's some tricks that you're supposed to be able to unplug and plug things in a couple times and get it to switch, but it did not. So the next thing I could do is just plug this into a different type of load, in this case a 15-inch MacBook Pro, and I'm only showing here, I'm showing about 70 watts going out of this, which is impressive for this size device. You're going to hear me say that over and over again. That's just because it's just shocking that this little tiny thing can put out that much power. And the more important thing is that Apple sees it as a 100 watt charger. So these MacBook Pros, this particular model I think came with an 87 watt USB-C charger. So I have no doubt that this thing will probably go up to 87 watts if it needed it, but most of the time it's just going to depend on what that computer is doing. In this case, I'm definitely charging that battery up because it's only at about half capacity right now on the MacBook Pro. So it is putting in a full 70 watts, and for that I'm pretty darn happy. It wasn't just a few years ago that I had a friend that did a lot of programming on the road, and he was coding up iPhone apps and stuff. And he asked me what's the best way to have an extended battery pack for, his MacBook that he was working on. And it was just a big mess of electronics that it would take to get like a portable AC adapter for his back then MacBook Pro that probably had the MagSafe connector, and he was just looking for some way to plug that into a battery bank. And now with USB-C, it's just this easy. Even if this thing wasn't enough power for you, put a couple of these in your backpack, and that's going to get you several charges on this MacBook Pro. Now, of course, I said the biggest use case for me would probably be for some kind of portable gaming device like this ROG Ally or a Steam Deck. And I take a Steam Deck with me whenever I travel, so I'm always looking for some way to keep it charged up. And we can see here that this thing is putting out 62 watts into this ROG Ally, which is, I know for sure, not fully charged up, so I know it's charging in addition to just playing the game. So if this thing was fully charged up, I'd expect this power to go down to, 30 or 40 watts, depending on the type of game that it's playing. And considering that this has about 36 watt hours of power in it, and the built-in battery on these handhelds are, I think both the ROG Ally and the Steam Deck are 40 watt hour batteries, you can assume that this thing, again, depending on the efficiency of transfer between the two devices, basically about the same amount of battery that's built in here, so you can expect to maybe double your playtime with this plugged in versus just the console by itself. And I know there may be some inefficiencies, or there may be some speculative, I don't want to call it lying, but over marketing of the specs of a device like this, especially when it's a brand that you've never heard of and you buy it on Amazon and the price is pretty cheap. For me, I don't really care if this isn't exactly what it says it's supposed to be. If it has this information on the screen, I know exactly what to expect from it. So it's not going to be plugged in and all of a sudden stop working and I don't know why. At least I know as I'm playing and as I'm charging or as I'm traveling, then I'm going to know what the percentage is at any given time and kind of have a ballpark of how long to expect that to keep on working. And you can see the size of this compared to, your portable gaming device. This thing is pretty tiny, easy to stick in a pocket or in a backpack. Alright, to summarize everything up, I think I'm going to say that I'm pretty impressed with what this thing can do for the size and for the price. If they had this same exact device that was maybe twice the size, maybe 20,000 milliamp hours or 60 watt hours of rated power, then that might be, a perfect solution and a good alternative to something that I've already said that I really enjoy having something like this, for most part, sitting beside my couch in the living room if I'm playing a Steam Deck for a long time while I'm watching a sports game or something. So small, powerful, what more can you say? If you want to check this out, I'll leave links down in the description below. Again, thank you for visiting those links. That helps out the channel. If you have any questions about it, let me know. I will answer anything that I can. But I think that's going to wrap it up for this one. I hope you found this video informational. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, I appreciate a thumbs up. If you want to check out more stuff, I got a lot of reviews on battery banks like this Jackery, that Anchor, and several other battery banks. Go check them out on this channel. That's going to wrap it up for this one. I thank you as always for watching, and until next time, peace out and geek out.